Hi there and welcome to this quick Photoshop tutorial. So this Photoshop tutorial is for a beginner and I just want to show you how you can use Photoshop in the quickest time possible. The easiest way to learn Photoshop is by watching as many tutorials as you can while practicing what you've learned. So make sure you learn more by practicing and watching more tutorials. That's how you're going to master Photoshop. So here we have our window, and first of all, let's talk about all these tools that we have here. And when you get Photoshop for the first time, maybe yours is going to be different from mine, and that's because maybe you're using a different version of Photoshop. So let's see the version that I'm using. If I go under help and I go here, you'll see that my version is 2017, Adobe Photoshop CC 2017. So here we have all the tools that you're going to need while you're editing or creating any kind of image in Photoshop. So you can see all these tools, all the tools are here, but if you right click on an element, you can still select other elements underneath. So there are elements that are hidden. If you see this, it means that there are elements that are beneath here. Okay, so if you want to select your image based on these shapes, you can do that using these tools. Check out the tools and know what each of the tools do. There are lots of tutorials about this. You can even read the Photoshop documentations and you'll see what each tool does and what it can be used for. And if you want to change the workspace here, this is how your workspace is. This is a default workspace. You can change it. If you come here under Windows, you can change the workspace, and let's say I choose graphic and design. So let's say the first thing I want to create, maybe I want to create a YouTube thumbnail for this particular video that I'm creating. So what I can do is I can come here under file to create a new file. So if I press, I can do that, or I can just do Control N. Control N will also create a new file. So these are the recent items that I've created, the recent shapes, the recent sizes of images that I've created and exported. So what you need to do is you need to know the size of image that you want to create, and if you're creating a YouTube thumbnail, you should probably use the 1080p resolution, or you can use the 720p resolution. So if I just click on that, or you can even use custom sizes here. Maybe you want to create an image which is 1000 pixels by 1000 pixels. You can do that here. You can also change the dimensional units that you're using here. Of course, we want to use pixels because these are images that I want to use on our website. And then you can also change the color mode, RGB. Of course, you want to use RGB or grayscale, but grayscale has no color. So mostly you'll use RGB. So just with that, you can also give it a name here. Give it a name, and then I can create. And when you do that, I can see that the layer is locked. So what I can do, I can just click there, and when I click on it, it will open this layer, and that means that I can edit this layer. Maybe the first thing I want to do is, let's see how I can add text, and I want to add text here, and we're calling it Quick Photoshop Tutorial. And you can see that the size of the text is pretty small. So I can just click until then. I can click multiple times until the entire text is selected. And I can come here, and if I come up here, I can change the font. I can change the font size. I can even write a custom font size. You can see it goes only up to 72 points, but I can do even higher. So I can go higher by just writing the number that I want to use. Let's say maybe I want to do 150. And when I do that, you can see that the sizes have increased, and I can also press enter to put this on a new line. Put that on a new line. And before I move it, if I want to move it, I can just press here to say that, okay, the text is okay now. Or you can also press on the move tool, and if you press on the move tool, you can move any item in Photoshop, and make sure that the layer of the item that you want to move is selected here. In Photoshop, layers are very important because everything is created on a layer. So you can see this is like the background layer. We can hide it, and if you hide it, you see that it's not visible. You can hide this layer as well. Maybe you want to edit something and this is in the way. You can just remove it for a moment. So let's say I want to drag in an image inside here, the Photoshop logo. Maybe I want to add it in here. So I can drag in a PNG file. I can just drag in a PNG file, and you can see it's pretty small. I may want to increase it in width. If you want to increase it in width, you can see it's already put in transformation mode. As soon as you import an image into Photoshop, it will be put into transformation mode, and transformation mode allows you to transform the image. So you can see I can play around with the size and increase the size of the image. But of course, if you want to increase an image, you need to increase it with the aspect ratio in mind. So the aspect ratio basically means that you're not going to lose its shape. Like if I just decide to expand it this way, you can see that it's losing its shape, and we don't want that. So I've just pressed Ctrl Z to undo that. So if I want to transform this and increase the size without losing the aspect ratio, I'm going to press Shift on my keyboard, and then I'm going to go to the very corner, to the corner of this image, and I can drag it. And then I'll press Enter, and now the image has a big size. Maybe I like this image. So if I want to copy this image, you can do that as well. Learn the desktop shortcuts that will help you to duplicate various items like images. If you want to duplicate a layer, you can just do Ctrl J. Once the layer is selected, like for this, I can select that layer and I'll do Ctrl J. And when I do Ctrl J, you'll see that there's a copy of the image. And make sure you select the correct, you select the correct layer there, and then you can drag it to maybe this other side. And for this one as well, I can click it and just drag it there. And for this one, maybe I want to reduce the size of this. So if you want to reduce the size, you can also go here under Edit, and you'll find Free Transform. Free Transform just gives you the capability to reduce the size of an image here. So I'll just select down, and in Free Transform mode, you can even rotate the image if you want to. Just wait until it turns like that. You can see how the cursor has turned. That means you can rotate it. And if you want to rotate it with angles in mind, you can press down Shift, and that's going to rotate it. It's going to rotate it at different angles. So if you want it to be straight, make sure you press Shift and then you rotate it. And you see, once it gets to that angle, it can be straight. So I'll just press Enter, and I can leave it like that. And maybe for this, I want to give this image some form of a background here. And we can also just push it so that it's in line with this. And we can give it a background by using a shape. So just remember, with layers, if you want an item to be visible, it has to be at the top of the other layers. So we want this to be visible, and we want to give it a background. So if I come here and I select this shape, this will allow me to draw a shape. It will allow me to draw a shape, and I want the shape to be the same color as, I want it to be the same color. Let's just see. The same color as that. Let's choose that and make it darker, something that's much darker. And then I'll say okay. And I don't want it to have a border. If you want it to have a border, you can choose a stroke, but I don't want it to have a border, so I'm going to select that. And I can just come in here and I can draw my shape, and it's going to give it the color. So you can see this layer is at the top of our text, but we want it to be at the bottom. So what I can do is I'm just going to come here and drag it below this. And once I do that, you'll see that we can now see our text, but the color is not clearly visible. So we can change the color of the text to white by just coming here and let's select our text. I can just click. Let me first of all select the move tool, and I can select the quick Photoshop tutorial text. And when I click on text, it will allow me to edit. And I don't even have to go in and edit it like that. I can just select the layer. And then once I select the layer, come here and click on text. And up here, you can see we have the color of the text, so that I can change it to white. And if you just click outside, if you see this means that you can select the color that you're currently pointing at. So when I do that, you'll see that it has changed the color. You can select any color here and it's going to change. It's going to change the color of your text. So if that's the color that you like, that's the color that you can use. But of course we want to use white. So I'm going to select white, and then I'm going to select OK. And just maybe that's all you need that's all you'll need as your thumbnail, as the YouTube thumbnail that you want to use. Maybe just something like that would be enough for you, right? Or maybe you want to add a shape here. Let's see the color that you can add. Let's make it black. So select the color down here, and I will select black. You can do something like that. And if it's something that maybe you want in your image, then you can have it. If you don't, you can delete it or you can hide it. So I'll just hide that because it doesn't really add any value to me. Maybe you want to change the background with a different color. So let's just select that background, and then we're going to change the color. We're going to choose fill color. Which one here fills the color? Is it this one? So just note that based on the workspace that you choose here, some items may not be available. So what you can do is you can actually customize your workspace in your own way, because there's a paint tool that I want to use that is not here in the other workspace. So I'm going to choose the different workspace, the default workspace, the essentials workspace, which is the default. So that's the one that I want to choose, and I want to choose that because I have this tool. There's this paint bucket tool that I want to use, which is not available in the other workspace. So if I want to use the paint bucket tool, you can just select a layer, and then you can use it to fill. You can use it to fill the background. So you can see this image has this white space on it. That's why we have this, but the paint bucket tool will fill in the color that you put. So even for this, if I just come here and I click there and I just select this layer, I don't know which layer this was, let's find it. Yes, it's this layer. So even for that layer, if I select it and I use the paint bucket tool, I try to use the paint bucket tool, you're going to see that I need to rasterize this image. So I'll just click OK to make it editable. And if I click there, you can see that it can take away that color for us. So maybe you have a different version of Photoshop and it won't work seamlessly like this. But you can just try using the paint bucket tool, and you're going to see that you can fill an entire layer with the color that you've chosen. Okay, so one last thing before I end the video, you can also change the font that you're using. So if you select text and we are on that layer, we can change the font that we're using on this side. If I just click there, I can see all the fonts here, and you can change them and use whichever font you want to use. Okay, so let's say this is the image that you want to use, and we're okay with using this, then what you can do is you can export it. You can just come here and go into File, and you can export. You can export, just click Save for Web, or you can export as. And if you click Export as, just give it time, and you can see that's going to be our image. You just need to choose the image format, and it will tell you the size, so you can use that to gauge. You can use these sizes to gauge the format that you want to use. Maybe if you want to use JPEG, you can see JPEG will be a larger image, so PNG will be smaller. So in this case, we can use PNG. And even if you want to reduce the size, you can do that here. We could do transparency, but in this case, we do have a background. There is no transparency that we need to maintain here. So you can change the size of the image that you're exporting. You can change the sizes there if that's something that you want to do. You can reduce it to a certain size. But for us, I want to do 100%. And then once you've chosen all this, you can just choose to export, give it a name, and I'll just leave it as untitled and export it to the desktop, save. And just like that, you have created your first image. So you can just use the skills that you've learned in this tutorial to create something that is related to this. So that's it for this tutorial. If you need more tutorials about Photoshop, just let me know. I can create longer tutorials, but I just wanted to create a quick Photoshop tutorial for you as a beginner if you're just getting started in Photoshop. So just note that the best way to learn Photoshop and the best way to master Photoshop is to watch as many tutorials as you can while practicing, and always practice and learn the keyboard shortcuts. Everything you do, it just saves you time to use the keyboard shortcuts. So you don't have to remember. Some of these things I don't even know where to find them. I can remember the keyboard shortcut, and that always saves me time. So the takeaway point here is keep learning. Make sure you practice what you learn and learn the keyboard shortcuts. That's it for this video. If you need any more Photoshop tutorials, just make sure to let me know in the comments and I will create them for you. See you next time.